let's make sure we're recording.
Yep, we're live now.
Recording.
Great. Okay, Cindy, would you mind reading the compliance statement?
Sure. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act with the annual notice advertised in the January 11th Trenton Times. Notice was provided to the Hunterdon County Democrat and the Trenton Times, members on the listserv, to department heads, the city attorney and city engineer, and the meeting agenda was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall with the glass doors of the elevator entrance and to the city's website at www.lambertville.nj.org. The meeting agenda provides for action items at the extent known at the time of publication, and this meeting will be recorded using the Zoom meeting platform.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can I get a motion to go into, first, Cindy, do we need to do a roll call?
Yes. Councilwoman Lambert,
Here.
Councilman Sanders, Councilman Stegman,
Here.
Council President Taylor,
Here.
and Mayor Fall.
Here.
Okay.
Cindy, would you mind reading the resolution for the close?
Sure. It is a motion to authorize the closed session at the February 18th session of the Lambertville City Council to discuss attorney-client issues related to personnel, contracts, and acquisition of property pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12B, 7, and 8.
Okay, great. Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, can I get an all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So Tina, will you put up the screen and we'll be back at 7 o'clock for our regularly scheduled meeting?
And Tina, you have to pause the video. Can you do that?
I think now we have a different roll call situation, so I might recommend redoing roll call and then we can go from there.
Councilwoman Lambert,
Here.
Councilman Sanders,
Here.
Councilman Stegman,
Here.
Council President Taylor,
Here.
Mayor Fall.
Here. Okay, great. Can I ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to ask you to remain standing for a moment of silence to honor the men and women who are fighting at home and abroad in our nation's armed forces, and also for those who are fighting at the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. Okay. All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for allowing us to get started. Cindy, I'm so sorry about this. I'm a little less than
Fine.
ready here.
We're on meeting minutes right now, Mayor.
Thank you, I appreciate it. All right, can I get a motion to approve the December 8th open and closed meeting minutes? And Bill, do you want to quickly, we had some questions about folks attending those the attendance on the December 8th open and closed, and if we're good to move forward with the votes from the present members.
Yes, we have a quorum of the governing body here tonight to open the meeting. Obviously, not all can vote on the December 8th meeting, but abstentions essentially don't count as votes. So if there's enough votes of the voting members for it to carry, then it'll carry.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the December 8th open and closed session?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I think you need to
I think
second.
you have to second that, Mayor, because since.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. That
Present.
was,
That's okay.
that was the whole point before.
Yep, that's right.
I was like, no, wait a second. Why were we talking about this? Okay, so I'll second, and then all in favor say aye.
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 Abstain.
We'll
Yeah.
note abstentions from Councilman Sanders, Councilman Stegman, and Councilwoman Lambert.
Noted.
Purple.
While seated, I was not present at that meeting. That's why we're doing this.
Can I get a motion to pass the minutes of January 5th, 2021 reorganization session, the January 15th retreat, January 15th closed session, January 21st open session, the February 2nd work session?
So moved.
Second.
Can I get all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, we're gonna move on to our resolutions and the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the consent agenda before we move forward? That's resolutions number 37 through 44.
And Mayor, you're holding on,
Resolution 41.
correct.
And Cindy, I'm sorry, is this the meeting that I have to recuse myself from the transfer?
There is one resolution, yes, Mayor.
Is that in the consent?
No, it's
Okay.
not in the consent.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any questions regarding the consent agenda?
Are we also carrying 45? Or am I looking, I think I've got the most current version.
Oh, I'm
45
sorry,
is
yes.
not in the consent agenda.
Oh, there it is, sorry.
I have a quick question about one of the resolution about the catch basin, if I might.
Yes, please.
Is there a list to share with the public of which catch basins we are addressing?
It is most of them. I'm happy to, Cindy, I think as a part of the RFP, there was a map.
Yep.
So we can make sure that that is available to the public as construction starts.
Thank you very much. I think that's it for me.
Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, can I get a motion to pass resolutions number 37 through 44?
Do you want any public input on this?
It's in the consent agenda. So normally we don't open for public comment on the consent agenda. Is there something that you think
Oh, no,
merits public comment?
maybe the fees that we're increasing for the bulk rate garbage fee. I think personally, I think it's good that we're actually approaching this from a cost basis to benefit, the city and to make it aware to the public that we're moving forward to bring our former costs in line with what it actually costs the city to do. So the increase is negligible in some cases. So I just didn't know if anybody had any other statement they wanted to make, but.
Well, we did this in conjunction with our department head, Lester from Public Works, and Cindy was the one who spearheaded this work. So I do want to thank her for really getting into the weeds on this with us. We looked at, neighboring municipalities as well as considering really what our costs are for what is a concierge trash pickup service.
Mhm.
And we wanted to address this before our next Sparkle Week because we have clarified some of our Sparkle Week in our Sparkle Week ordinance in order to ensure that people, are using these types of bulk permits instead, right? So that we had a huge issue this year with folks doing some COVID cleaning and almost doubling the amount of total trash we picked up as a part of Sparkle Week, much of which was really a bulk trash permit that was required. So that was what spurred this conversation and helped us modernize our list.
So the cost of Sparkle Week is somehow worked into these new numbers?
No, I don't think the cost of Sparkle Week is worked into anything other than our budget. It's an unfortunate, but
All
no,
right.
it's
Just
just
wanted to
the
be- I just wanted to-
conversation around Sparkle Week last year was what sparked this ongoing conversation about changing these rates.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. That motion is still out.
Second.
I actually think we need a first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm happy to make the motion.
Thank you, Councilman. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, can I get a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Oh, yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes,
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. So resolution number 45 is a resolution to authorize the transfer of the ABC license from Deanna's of Lambertville to Tavern 54 LLC. It was advertised properly. And are there any questions regarding this for the council?
I have a quick question to let, there was still, I assume that whatever was open several weeks ago has been taken care of and.
No, we need to carry this to the March 2nd meeting.
Oh, thank
Ah.
you. Okay.
My
All
question.
right. Then we'll move to resolution number 46, which is a resolution to authorize the amendment of the contract with BRS Incorporated, which is doing our environmental due diligence on the Clausen site. They have laid out for the governing body their what they'll be doing over the course of the next several weeks. And that scope change required a change in their total budget. So is this an amendment to the not to exceed? Are there any questions?
So Mayor, just so I understand, do they need additional information? Can you share with us what else is needed? I'm not sure I understand.
Sure. So I'm going to ask Bill to answer that question because there's some because this isn't our property, there's some sensitivity around responding to that question in public.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's our initial contract was for $4,200. That was the first round of the environmental tests. They recommended that we have it built into our contract with the Clausens that we're allowed to do a second phase of studies. They gave us the scope for that. We kind of picked the middle route because we think that's the most advantageous to the city at this point. So that required the increase in those funds, and that money's been bonded for already. It's already available. We just have to authorize the additional payment through this resolution.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Bill. When it says phase one, is that phase one, or just meaning is it an environmental phase one, or is it
Yes,
just phase? Oh, it is for environmental.
BRS is our environmental consultant who we hired back in January. So that's the process they're going.
I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adopt resolution number 46, authorizing the award of that contract for additional services to BRS?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Councilman Sanders. Thank you, Councilman Stegman. Can I get a roll call vote?
Oh, we can do a public comment on this before? Is there any
If you'd like to do a public comment on this.
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Are there any questions from the public at this time?
I don't see any hands raised just yet.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Lambert,
I'd just like to say that based on the response provided by Mr. Opal and the fact that this is already budgeted for, I vote yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
I concur and vote yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay. On here. Sorry, I just lost my.
Resolution number 47 to the
Thank
business
you.
administrator.
Yes. So I'm so sorry about this. For some reason, I am having a lot of trouble seeing my screen right now. Here we go. Okay. This resolution number 47 is to authorize the award of a non-fair and open contract for an interim administrator to help the city of Lambertville prepare the 2021 budget in an amount not to exceed $16,800 for a period of 1 year. I want to just briefly go through for the public what how we got to this process. We had initially considered and gone out to look for a business administrator as a shared service with the city of Flemington. Well, originally with the town of Clinton Township. And to do a similar sort of consulting shared service with that business administrator. That BA felt that was too much of a scope, that there was too large of a scope for him to be able to manage that. And so we then went to look for a shared service with a certain number of hours in Lambertville, a certain number of hours in Flemington, and got relatively far along in the process of finding a business administrator to fill that role. And what we heard over and over again from our candidates was that they're concerned that, both the city of Flemington and the city of Lambertville required full-time business administrators, and that they were concerned about being set up to fail in a shared service situation. We then took a step back as a governing body and to see if there was a way to help us clean up our current system, get through the work of our budget, and to work towards bettering our system so that we could get a part-time or shared service business administrator in this position. We went to multiple different consulting firms throughout the state, all of which are relatively reputable and have decades and decades of municipal government experience. We received two interested parties back. Cindy and I did a series of interviews with each of those parties. The scope of their recommendations and their work were really pretty vastly different. One was really focused on sort of a report on what the city needed, and one was more focused on actually boots on the ground help with some of the administrative work that we have coming specifically around the budget. And so we decided, both because it was a cheaper option and because it was a more focused approach, that this particular business administrators consulting group was the right fit for the city for this portion of time. And specifically, right around the time that we need to really get cracking on our budget to stay on time with the state. So that was our sort of decision-making process here. Are there any questions from the council regarding that process?
I'm sorry, was someone speaking?
Oh, go ahead, ladies first.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry, Mayor, did you say that this contract will provide us with a kind of a overview assessment of where we need to be going in the future with looking for a staff BA? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just one further question. The work of the BA will be solely related to the budget? I don't think that's what we intend, right?
No, so the focus in the near short-term future is specifically around the budget. And to help make some recommendations, we will, if that scope, expands far past that, I think we'll have to come back and, renegotiate the NTE. I'm sorry, the not to exceed. But at this time, they are looking at, they're focused on the scope of the budget and to help us address some of our sort of most prominent administrative concerns.
Mayor, can you give a little bit more detail about how many hours of work that this figure will cover?
Sure. Cindy, I believe that that was provided in Michael's note to us. Is that the case?
I think it was. I'll look it up.
I don't have that in front of me, Councilman, but I do know that that was, I believe that was provided in your packet.
Yeah, but I think it would be, it'd be good to share it with,
Was it an hourly rate of, I'm allowed to say what the hourly rate is, aren't I?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so it was an hourly rate of $70 an hour, I believe. And I did the math earlier in the day, and I think I came up with 240 hours into 16,800.
I recall
So,
that as well, yeah.
yeah, so that's about 6 months, 4 months, approximately. Am I right? Am I doing the math right? 1,000 hours a year roughly?
Right, but we're not going to be using him. He won't be in the office 40 hours a week, right?
No, I'm just saying, just in general, if you want to do like an estimate of how, like Steve was asking how many hours, right? So it's like, 240 hours. And I just extrapolated that to approximately how much effort 240 hours is on duration effort. So you're saying that this resource will be doing, I think we can agree it's 240 hours, right? 70 divided into 16,800. And that 240 hours would be done over the period of 1 year?
That's correct.
Okay.
And if we decide to expand that scope past those number of hours, that we would come back to the council.
Right.
With
Excuse me, I didn't mean to imply that the 44 months was going to be consecutive days.
Okay. Are there any?
That is what his agreement says in the very end, that he would be $70 an hour for up to 240 hours in an amount not to exceed 16,800. But he doesn't tell us how many hours a week. And I think that is going to fluctuate depending on availability of department heads, because he's going to be working on the budget and doing some things. So I think that he's saying that's what it's going to cost to get us up to speed.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to very briefly speak to the need here. I just, arguably the budget is the most important document or work that we do. Mayor, you and others, throughout the country have referred to budgets as moral documents. It's a really important part of what the city needs to do. And we need the talent and time to do it, which I don't think we have right now. So I do, support the notion of going out here because I think it's really important to, to have a sound foundation for the work throughout the year.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the resolution title says that it is to work on the budget, but we acknowledge that it is not just the budget, it is also to look at some of our systems and practices.
Correct. That
Okay.
This is but that will be primarily done through the lens of our budget and our city's financial work.
Okay, so can we, I mean, it's not in relationship to voting or not voting on this resolution, but it would be good to have some understanding from this consultant at some reasonable time in his tenure with us to say, here's what I'm seeing. I think we're going to need more money. I think we're going to not need more money. I guess what I'm saying is I don't want it to get to the end of the period and all of a sudden be like, oh, we need more money to do more work. I'd like to understand the process as he's going along.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have every expectation that this consultant will come to this board, not only for the presentation of the budget, but also for our ongoing findings. So we will have plenty of bites at that apple. Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, one more question. Do we know do we have a clear expectation of what the finished product is with respect to assessing our needs? Do we have a clear expectation of what that finished product is with the consultant? I mean, has he or she shared with you what that end product's going to be?
We've had
Because-
the initial conversations specifically regarding our capital improvement plan, how our 6-year capital improvement option, which was something that was a direct, our expectation of our full-time business administrator, that we would create that document, a 5-year financial plan, which includes sort of, some amount of forecasting, right, that normal municipalities have as a part of their budget planning process. So when we're talking about sort of assessing our issues through the lens of the budget, that's what I mean here. It was a stated goal of mine at the beginning of our budget process in 2019 that I'd like to get to a place where we have a 6-year financial plan and a 6-year capital budget, understanding, as always, right, that accidents happen, trucks break, the Clausens very suddenly move out of their home, and that goes on the market, right? That capital plans are just plans, but that is a document that we don't currently have. We have never worked off of one, and something that I think our city is in desperate need of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the public regarding this appointment? Tina?
Stevens.
Yes, I see one. Paul, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Paul Stevens, 39 Quarry. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. I have a question about the budget, the role of this person in relationship to the CFO. In the immediate future, it seems like the 2020 budget financial statement needs to be prepared, and the proposed budget for 2021 needs to be prepared. And I'm just trying to understand the division of work, because you've talked about this person working on the budget. Where does the CFO versus this business administrator play in these two immediate things? It just helped clear things up for me.
For sure. So we actually have an entire finance committee, which includes our bond counsel, the CFO, our business administrator, myself, Cindy, and Sue Bacorn, who's our bookkeeper and payroll administrator, and just about everything else that involves a check in the city of Lambertville. And so the annual financial disclosure statements, the closure of the 2020 budget, that is solely really in the heart and hands of the CFO and Sue to close out our system from last year and ensure that we have hit all of our statutory obligations. The budget, the sort of predictive budget of 2021 that's due to the state at the end of March and April, is much more about how the city intends to spend our money, right? It's things like revenue prediction, things like, salaries and wages, department head requirements, as well as our capital budget. So those two things are slightly different. The CFO is really the manager of how those accounts are expended to ensure that we aren't overexpending on our accounts, and sort of the line item work. The administrator and myself are in the role of what Councilman Sanders has said, that in fact I do say that sort of moral portion of our budget document, right? So how and when we're expecting to spend our money in 2021.
Thanks. That helps clear things up for me.
Great.
Michelle, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment and question.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Harris, 26 Church Street. Just a clarification about the math and the hours involved. There was something that I think was maybe not calculated correctly. And just for the record, I wanted to make sure that we were all clear on the time commitment and how it was represented. So did I hear correctly that it's 240 hours over the course of a year? Not to exceed 240 hours over the course of a year, is that correct?
All contracts with the governing body have to be for a year. This contract is for 240 hours or $16,800, whichever comes first.
Got it. Okay, so the representation, and what I just wanted to put in some terms that maybe people could understand, there's one way of looking at this in terms of value, to Councilwoman Lambert's question about like, what is the end product expected to be? There's also, you know, what does that time look like over the course of a year? So I think there was a comment about 240 hours. If you collapse that so people can understand a percentage of time that represents, there was a comment that it would be about 4 months. It's actually only about a month and a half, right? So because there are about 160 hours in a work month if you're full time, and so 240 hours is just a month and a half. So it's actually a pretty small slice of time spread out over a year. Another way to think about it is a standard from human resources standpoint is 2,080 hours a year is kind of a standard way to calculate a full-time work year. This is only 240 hours, so that's about 11.5% of somebody's time. So I just wanted to clarify that for perspective.
Thank you, Michelle. My math was off. I haven't been working for a couple of years. Thank you.
No problem. I'm sitting in front of a spreadsheet. It's easy to calculate.
Okay, great. It seems as if that is the last comment. So I'm going to ask for a motion I'm sorry, give me 1 second here. Can I get a motion to adopt resolution number 47 to 2021, authorizing a contract with MDA to serve as our interim business administrator?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Councilman Sanders for the first, Councilwoman Taylor for the second. Can I get a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Lambert,
I like the approach of hiring a consultant for a very targeted set of tasks or, and deliverables, as well as the ability to get an assessment of what our needs are for a business administrator. So I'm voting yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes, I agree.
Councilman Sanders,
Councilman Sanders, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. We've got.
This is the one I have to do.
Oh, great. Okay, so I have to, thank you, Councilwoman Taylor. I have to recuse myself because there was an overpayment on my refinancing from one of the many financial consultants that we dealt with in order to do a refinancing on our home. And this repayment is encapsulated in this, so I'm not allowed to vote on it.
Okay, resolution number 48-2021, a resolution to authorize the refund of overpayments of first quarter taxes to Wells Fargo and CoreLogic. Are there any comments or questions from council?
No.
Okay,
No question.
hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Cindy, can we get a roll call?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes, yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Council President Taylor.
Yes.
Okay, great. Mayor Fall, you're back on.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see here. We're in resolution number 49. This is a resolution to authorize the affordability assistance as required and endorsed by the spending plan for our affordable housing description, anticipated use of affordable housing funds. Letter B, covering low income units to very low income units or creating new very low income units. Can we, this is a part of our statutory requirements and agreement along with our COA. This is sort of a standard part of our affordable housing plan. Are there any questions from the governing body regarding this resolution?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Can I get a motion to motion to adopt resolution number 49, 2021?
So moved.
Councilwoman Lambert for the first,
Second.
Council President Taylor for the second. Can I get a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman, sorry.
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. We're on the bills list. Are there any questions or comments regarding the bills? Hearing none, can I get a motion to pay our bills?
So moved.
Councilman Stegman for the first,
Second.
Councilwoman Lambert for the second. I'll just do an all in favor. Say aye.
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 Okay, we're moving on to the first reading of an ordinance. This first ordinance is about our current dumpster rules and regs. The issue with this dumpster ordinance, with our current dumpster ordinance, is that people are playing tricks to avoid paying the weekly fee for a dumpster when they're doing construction. We have this ordinance so that people don't park dumpsters in front of construction sites and jam up parking on our already sort of parking challenged streets. This ordinance, we hope, will address some of the concerns we've had before, where people are extending and extending and extending their dumpster usage and not following our current ordinance. So I'll give you an example. Our current ordinance, says that we should there's a certain fee to park a dumpster for 1 week, and then an amount of money every week after that. So somebody will drop a dumpster, pay the initial fee, take it away, wait 3 days, come back, put another dumpster down, and sort of play these like little games so that they don't have to pay the ongoing fee. We're just trying to address that. There's been, I think there are some general bad actors who have been trying to avoid this, and this clears up some of the confusion so that our police department can better enforce this rule. Are there any questions? Councilman Lambert, you're on mute.
I have to acknowledge my ignorance of dumpster etiquette. So how will this address? I understand the problem, the part about people taking it away for a day or two and then reapplying for the initial for their first time permit. How will this address that? How will this close that gap on the violation?
So, and Cindy, I'll allow you to answer this question because you've been moving along. But the idea is, since you received this permit application, if you look at the section 12 3-6 permit term expiration additional fees and its amendments, right? You can see here that if you issue this permit within 6 months, the fee continues to progress, right? So instead of me sort of paying one initial fee, snagging it away, coming back and paying the first initial fee again, if I get a dumpster permit within a 6-month period, this dumpster ordinance allows us to continue to increase the gradual pay of that site. Cindy, is that a fair?
That's correct, Mayor, yes.
So it extends the scale of the subsequent permit fees.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And it allows us to address this like tricky nonsense and get back to folks, the goal of this ordinance is to have folks remove their dumpsters as quickly as possible. We don't want people leaving dumpsters on the side of the road for an indefinite period of time.
Okay.
I'll know that there was the first time of the use of the term dumpster etiquette, maybe ever. So thank you.
Okay. So with that, can I get a motion? I just want to remind everybody that this is just the first hearing. We're just reading this bond ordinance into the record. We'll have a public hearing on this at our next voting session, which is sometime in March, I'm sure.
March 18th.
So with that, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Councilman Sanders, can I get a second?
Second.
Councilman Stegman for the second. Can I get a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Council President Taylor.
Yes, and I'll just say, Mayor, I think you just said this bond ordinance. This is not a bond ordinance, just a regular old ordinance, just so
Oh
nobody
my God, did I say
freaks
that?
out. That's what I thought I heard.
I've been trying to cut down my caffeine, so you'll have to excuse me. Firing on about a third of my cylinders.
And Mayor Fall.
Yes, I almost said here. I'm here and I do approve. Okay. This is, so ordinance number 2, our next introduction is ordinance number 2, 2021. This is an ordinance to amend the Lambertville City Code 2014 for a pay-to-play ordinance. This was specifically requested as a policy recommendation by Councilman Sanders. So I'm going to kick it over to him to allow him to explain the goals of this ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Make sure my mic is on. Yeah. So, you know, the state has a number of state level requirements regarding its ethics code and so forth. There is room for local municipalities to enact local pay-to-play ordinances. There's actually a state website that has, I'm not sure it's a listing of all of them. I think it's intended to be. And many municipalities have enacted local pay-to-play ordinances. They largely follow the same grid, and I do want to thank our counsel, Mr. Opal, for starting a draft for us here. The two things that I kind of changed in here were, number one, to provide for an emergency change here. Oh, I should say what this is intending to do is it's not intending to limit donations, it's limiting the awarding of contracts to those who do make donations. So one of the things that's in here is that some municipalities have a permissible minimum in terms, or maximum, I should say, in terms of donations made. Many municipalities have just a zero tolerance. My proposal here is to have a zero tolerance for those that are bidding for contracts here. But it would also set an exception process so that, you know, if we were in, you know, have another Superstorm Sandy or something else, and we need a vendor right away, that we're not foreclosed from somebody that we really need in an emergency situation. So it does provide for emergent waiver process. So again, many municipalities have this, many don't. But I do think that, you know, it's designed to instill more faith in government, that the procurement and distribution or selection of contracts by municipal officials is not tainted by political donations. So that's the intent. Again, many municipalities have this, many don't. You know, the two things that I wanted to make sure were in there was an emergency procedure, as some other towns do. And then we had a choice. As I say, many towns have levels that have sort of permissible contributions where you can still award the contract. This has sort of a zero tolerance for that. I'm happy to answer questions that folks may have on the draft.
I just have a question for Mr. Opal, if that's okay. From your sort of opinion here, in terms of the whatever gradient scale various municipalities have for pay-to-play or pay-to-play ordinances, how would you sort of grade ours on a scale of strict to not strict?
Strict.
This current proposal.
Strict.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have a question for Councilman Sanders. Is there a look back period? Like if somebody gave a political donation in the past, what's that time period? Or is there no time period where you could award a contract? Not that I'm looking to do that, I'm not. I just want to understand what the parameters are.
Yeah, looking quickly, this is a prospective application of the bill. So it's you know, we're going to be looking forward. You know, I just it's hard to see on my screen right now, but it does have a prospective application. It doesn't have a retroactive application.
I'm sorry, I missed the end of what you said.
It has a prospective application, but not a retroactive application.
Oh, okay, okay. wait a minute, does that mean that we wouldn't be looking at donations made in the past? Is that what that means? Okay, so I think my question was, moving forward, if somebody makes a vendor makes a political donation, is there a period of time after that between the time the political donation is made when that business may be awarded a contract, or is it just you made a political donation, you are no longer eligible for a contract with this, from our municipality?
I have to look at the drafting this. I think it is in perpetuity, if I'm not mistaken. Bill, do you have a sense of that? If you look at the 2.13-2, it talks about contributions made prior to the effective date of this. But yeah, I think it's in perpetuity.
I'm looking for the page.
And you put on notice that this exists. This would clearly have a chilling effect on donations from entities that may be doing municipal business.
Can I add something? In section 2-13.1A, it said it's 1 calendar year immediately precedes the date of so that if the donation is made in the calendar year, 1 calendar year immediately preceding the date of the contract, then that
Okay.
would not
Thank
be
you,
allowed.
Bill.
And
Okay,
then
thank you.
going to 13.2, anything prior to the date that this ordinance becomes effective wouldn't count. It would just be prospective, as the councilman said.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, so I will kick this then. Can I get, again, this is a first reading of an ordinance. There'll be a public hearing on this, again, at the March 18th meeting. If I can get a motion to move on Councilman Sanders, on the pay for play ordinance. That's ordinance number, ordinance number 2, 2021.
I'm moved.
Second,
Councilwoman Lambert for the first, Council President Taylor for the second. Can I get a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders, Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay. Moving right along, our next is a emergency bond ordinance. Well, it's a bond ordinance providing for some vehicle rehabilitation. So these are all extremely emergent issues within our Public Works and Police Department. Our intention is, and we will continue to strive for the goal of only passing, our capital ordinances in one cluster together. Unfortunately, particularly with the wear and tear on the Public Works Department around the snow, and the decision that the governing body formally made in, formerly made in November of last year to hold on passing this bond ordinance for the street sweeper, and us meeting that prior to us being able to pass a full capital plan. These are functionally just the 4 most important time-sensitive things that we need right now. We can't wait until April to pass these. So the street sweeper, we knew it was coming. We chose not to pass a bond ordinance last year for it and to push this into next year. It's fixed. We got it back, I believe, yesterday. It's ready to go, so we no longer have to borrow our street sweeper from Mercer County. The skid adjuster, the skid steer, is specifically for our snow trucks. We've gone through quite a bit of wear and tear because of the amount of snow the city's had to cope with over the last several weeks. And then there's a issue with some wiring on a truck at the Public Works Department that we need in order for us to be able to continue to do our trash and third can service. It is not a trash truck, it's a pickup truck, but we use that in our regular pickup schedule. And then we put a small amount in here because we expect some ongoing wear and tear from winter weather, and we don't want to have to come back to this Apple again in a month or so. We'd like to just have like a little bit of cushion in case we have other significant vehicle breaks. Are there any questions from the council on any of these? Okay. So then with that, can I get a motion to introduce on first reading ordinance number 3?
So moved.
Thank you, Council
Second.
President.
Second?
Thank you, Councilman Sanders. Can I get a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Lambert,
I believe in the ability of the city to provide basic services, so I vote yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. Okay, we have no ordinances up for second reading, so
You have one more ordinance, ordinance number 4, which is a handicap parking ordinance.
okay. So thank you, Cindy. We have ordinance number 4. This is to provide a handicap parking spot on 40 Delaware Avenue. This has been overseen by Lieutenant Brown and by Lester to ensure that there wasn't going to be any undue traffic issues from this spot. Are there any questions regarding this spot, the handicap spot? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve on first reading ordinance number 4?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second?
Councilman Stegman for the first, Councilman Sanders for the second. Can I get a roll call?
Councilwoman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilman Stegman,
Yes.
Council President Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes. So we don't have any other ordinances on the books for second reading, so we're going to move into the discussion portion of our evening. I want to start by talking about an issue that is sort of particularly relevant because of the pandemic times that we live in. As we were gearing up for and moving over to virtual work, there was, a series of learning functionally instances where for some reason or another, our Zoom failed and it conflicted with some of our requirements from the state for noticing. In 2 of those instances, it has cost applicants at our zoning or planning boards money because they had to re-notice because the meeting wasn't able to be held, so that the meeting wasn't allowed to open. And so the item was not allowed to be held until the next. We don't have a policy for reimbursing members of the community for those types of errors because even in a snowstorm, we could open up a building and hold the meeting. This is very particular to this sort of digital meeting moment that we're in. I feel strongly we need to talk about this as a governing body and have a policy based on this, as this is going to be the next year of our lives. The likelihood that we will come back to full meetings in person in 2021 is very low. And so because of that, I feel strongly we need to come up with a policy as a governing body in order to be able to address these issues moving forward and potentially address the issues from the 2 applicants moving retroactively. Bill, I want to start by asking you a question here. Is it possible, if the governing body feels strongly one way or the other, that we could retroactively reimburse the applicants for the expenses they incurred in re-noticing?
Yeah, generally, based on the municipal land use law and just the custom of noticing these land use board hearings, the costs are always borne by the applicant. However, in these two instances, it's kind of, it was out of the applicant's hands, and it was more of a technological error than anything else. And it would kind of be unfair not to reimburse them. The one issue I see that, I brought up is that whatever policy is formulated from this has to be very specifically tailored to this issue. We have to stick with the policy that these costs are borne by applicants and not the city. But, in these very limited circumstances where it's, through no fault of the applicant that this happened, and it's completely, the fault of our technology or our, the platform that was provided for them to have these meetings. I think it's a policy that we can proceed with and, use it to potentially reimburse past applicants and have a very specific policy in place for similarly situated applicants going forward.
Go ahead, Councilman Sanders.
Yeah, and thank you for that guidance, Bill. Are we aware, obviously we need to treat similarly situated parties the same. So there are these two instances. Are there more that we're aware of going back in time? I'm just wondering what kind of.
Well, this opens up a small bag of worms, which is why I wanted to bring this to the council at large, right? So in a previous meeting last year, there was an issue with a reconciliation of an e-check, right? That cost the payer, about $500 in excess taxes because of the reconciliation. It took about 3 months for the city to reconcile those online sites, and the council decided at that time that we really didn't have the that the policy didn't exist and that we didn't have the scope. But that is different, right? Not, sort of on a weekly or monthly basis. Reconciling is different from what was a true technology error in this case, wherein, we had incorrect Zoom, we had two separate Zoom links set on the virtual meeting page, and it meant that some members of the public were being sent to a Zoom meeting that didn't exist. And there's no way to contact the public and say, you should be using this Zoom link instead that was appropriate for the noticing. So we have one of the things that I think I see as a concern here is neither of those are a fault of the applicant or the payer, right? But in this particular case, this was a true technology error rather than, the ongoing system of when our government reconciles its checkbooks.
And I think, I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, please.
No, and I think if we go forward with this policy, it should be limited to the land use area. I think, like the mayor said, we open up a bag of worms if we do this in any other format, because it's difficult to, for online payments and things like that, it's difficult to figure out who's similarly situated. So in this context where we have applicants who are relying on, city provided technology for their land use board hearings, if we come up with a policy that's limited to that issue, I think we can limit the scope of any unfair treatment or allegations related to that going forward, and we can just have it focused on this specific issue. And to be honest, it's probably only going to be a policy that's hopefully going to be needed for the next several months, and not something that's terribly long term. As hopefully we'll be able to transition back to normal in-person meetings sometime late this year, early next year.
I have a question.
Councilwoman Lambert was first,
Thank
Councilman Sigmund, and then I'll flip the board to you.
Just, you may have said it and I missed it. Do we know how these incorrect, how they were generated? Like what the root cause of the problem was? Do we know that?
Yes. So the root cause was an issue with the Zoom function itself, and then it was further an issue of instead of us catching that that error, or that Zoom related error, we posted it on the website. So it was both.
Okay.
fault
So it
and-
was, right, so it was a combination of factors, but clearly on our side of the fence.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a process in place to monitor against a repeat of that?
We have implemented that process since both of these errors occurred.
Okay. I'm done.
Councilman Stegman?
Yeah, can we, when this is written, can we sunset this policy?
My only concern about sunsetting this is that since we have agreed as a governing body to continue to record our meetings ad infinitum, and that some version, while we may go back to public hearings, some version of a recorded meeting will continue to happen. There will be technology sort of as a part of our meetings in perpetuity, which was a very serious concern of mine, and why I voted against recording of meetings. But I think that it would be a mistake to sunset this, because some version of this may happen again with the sort of availability of the public streaming portion.
We've always recorded our plan. I mean, when we voted on the council recordings. Is that correct?
Yes. What I was talking about was not the recording itself, but the streaming of some version of public meetings. So that because we have agreed to record these meetings, that very likely some amount of streaming will also be a part of the reality of our meetings moving forward.
And again, this policy should be limited to that. Planning and zoning board hearings have to be transcribed.
That was
yeah.
Can you go back when you had, when you had started, Bill, you had talked about it being specifically the land use issues.
Yeah, I think so. The two instances where we're looking to reimburse applicants is because when you have a land use board hearing, certain people have to be put on notice.
Right.
It costs money to generate those notices or pay an attorney to draft them, and mailing costs and things like that has to go to a significant number of people. So in those instances, in normal times, like the mayor said, if there was a snowstorm, people would have been on notice, the whole meeting would have been canceled, and it would just be carried. So a lot of times they don't have to renotice. With Zoom, it's different. In order to cover your bases, attorneys are saying if there's an issue with Zoom, you have to renotice. It's not the applicant's fault. So I think this should be limited to the land use board, as specific as possible to the land use board applications where people have to come out of pocket for notice. We shouldn't have to reimburse if there's an issue with transcription, for example.
Mhm.
Those are required, those costs are generally borne by the applicant. So,
Okay.
that shouldn't be the issue. It should just more, in my opinion, be limited to technology failures for the platform that the city provides.
Specifically to land use.
There's no requirement to transcribe governing body meetings. So, and we haven't had an issue yet, and I don't think
Right.
anybody would incur any cost if we did related to governing body meetings. So, yes,
Yeah.
I think specific to
Well,
land.
we can always start with that, and if something else comes up, I'd rather have it limited to where it costs the applicant money.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
So it sounds like we have a direction here from the council. I wanted to make sure that we had that discussion with the governing body. We will write that policy and begin to enact it. I don't think that we need a resolution from the governing body to change that policy. This was more of a discussion because it is a significant policy change. So we will we'll draft the policy so that it's available, and then we'll circulate that with the governing body. And after that policy is written, deal with the two applicants that were inconvenienced in terms of their cost from those technology issues. Okay. Moving right along, I want to make sure that we have time to give updates from members of council on the work that they're working on. So I'll start actually with Councilwoman Lambert, if you don't mind just giving us a quick update on the work that you're doing.
So there are two things I'm involved with. One is the green team. And I have met with a member of that team and gotten an overview introduction to the Sustainable New Jersey program. And the green team is working on recertification for our city, for Sustainable New Jersey, for silver status. However, at this point in the process, the Environmental Commission is taking the lead on that. So there hasn't been much activity on that lately for the green team. The second thing I'm working on is the Parks and Recreation Commission. And I've gone to two of their meetings, the two meetings they've had this year. They're working, there will be a summer camp this year. I don't think the dates have been finalized. There's talk of some fun spring things. Again, plans are in process and will be announced as they're finalized. And they're looking to complete the capital improvement project in March.
Okay, great. And did you get a sense of, that capital improvement project is around Ely Field and the lights on Ely Field? Did you get a sense from them on what, as well as the Learning Garden pavilion? Did you get a sense if they needed anything from the governing body in order to be able to move forward on that?
Not at this time, because that's the key reason. The only thing I was asked to follow up on is, and I've reached out to Cindy and there's been some emails. There's something about a need for removal of a tree in Mary Sheridan Park and bids on that. So I've, been trying to facilitate the response to that question and getting what they need, but nothing else came up at that time or since then.
Okay, thank you. Moving right along, Councilman Stegman, I know you've got quite a bit on your plate right now. Would you like to give us a quick update on what's going on?
Yeah, I'm working with Emily and the mayor and the zoning officer on taking a look at the ordinances that deal with change of use and businesses coming in to attract new businesses to come in, making the entire process easier, basically. Well, we have a meeting. We had the initial meeting went very well, and there's another meeting that Emily and I have moving forward to go over some proposals that other municipalities have used and see if we can boilerplate some of that into what we're doing. But the goal is to identify what businesses should be allowed in, specifically in this case, Central Business District, and which would streamline the process of attracting new businesses and shortening the timeline and the expense of having that happen.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this project. I do want to just let folks know, for those who are hearing about this for the first time, that this was a grant that we applied to through the County of Hunterdon. So they are actually paying for all of our contracted services to make a study of those other municipalities and to try and mirror other municipalities in Hunterdon County who have already enacted these types of zoning changes to ensure that stuff doesn't get clogged up in our planning and zoning board.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know my history, at one point I had two businesses in town, and actually went through a rather lengthy and costly hearing on one of them. This would help to avoid that expense and time of the applicant and the professionals as well. And where it's applicable, it's applicable. We're just trying to make it easier for that to happen. And I'm happy to work on this project.
Excellent. Councilman Sanders, do you want to give us an update on the medical marijuana, the recreational marijuana
Hey, it got any award?
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, so in November of 2020, right? Yeah, November 2020, there was a legislatively referred constitutional amendment question to legalize marijuana. It was approved. It was approved fairly overwhelmingly, if I remember correctly. The amendment is not self-executing. The legislature needs to act. So they have had two bills that are on the governor's desk. The governor has to do something with those bills. One is a decriminalization bill and one is a legalization bill. He has expressed concerns with the bills that are on his desk, but he hasn't acted yet. He has until the assembly comes back in to meet, which is what's going to be yesterday or tomorrow, but now it's going to be next week sometime. So there's a little bit more time. And I just read right before this meeting started that the Senate unexpectedly is going to meet tomorrow to try to thread the needle of legislation. The Senate Judiciary is going to meet tomorrow to try to address sort of a cleanup version of this. They've been having a hard time getting the votes to it. So it's a long-winded explanation for saying that the law hasn't actually been passed in New Jersey to do this. And then there's going to be regulations at the state level. Meanwhile, municipalities and we are trying to get ready in anticipation of the law being or laws being enacted. And some of this is around, planning and zoning and so forth. So I met 2 weeks ago with Mark Cullison and Reggie Ross, neither of whom I knew beforehand, but they were very helpful and knowledgeable and engaged, as well as with Emily Goldman, to talk about what steps Lambertville would need to take as it prepares for the signing of legislation, hopefully soon. There are resource tools that are available. Mr. Opal was nice enough to give us some resources. I talked to Lori Buckaloo, who used to be our clerk and now is the State League of Municipalities. They have some great resources on this. Emily had some that that her firm has given to clients. So we've been sort of tracking the legislation. We're identifying sort of a work plan and what decision points the city will need to make. Obviously, this 3 or 4 person group is not going to be the decision makers, but at least to identify the decision points for the city as to what's important. So we're working through that with the tools that we have. We'll probably try to meet, I think we're trying to do a cadence of every 3 weeks or so. But that's where we are with marijuana efforts.
Yeah, and I think it might be helpful for folks to know that if the city isn't going to address this specifically around zoning and planning, that whatever the state implements is going to be our rules as well. And so it is really important because we have, a historic central business district. We also have a secondary and a third business district that's outside of the CBD that we think really critically about where we want a business like this, if we want a business like this, and what other rules or restrictions we might want to enforce on that if the green wave is inevitably coming.
THC district, if you will. Yes.
Indeed.
That's what we'll see. But just very briefly, Mayor, too, on the Pennies pipeline. So
sorry, before we totally move off of the marijuana, there was a question that was brought to me actually by my discussions with another council member in West Amwell that I was hoping I could give to you to look into.
Sure.
The old Buddies on Route 179,
yeah.
There's a jurisdictional question of whether or not that building is in Lambertville or in West Amwell. And the consensus seems to be that it's in both. And that there's some concerns about that being a potential site that's being considered for a potential distribution site. And so I want to make sure that we address that as we're starting to think about that, if it's in our district, if it's.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of these business tends to be, as I understand it, on the retail side, as sort of a drive in, drive out kind of business, more like a McDonald's or something. It's not, a downtown shopping kind of environment generally. I always thought that was in West Amwell, but but with something we'll certainly take a look at. I always thought it was in West Amwell, but take a look.
Cindy, you're seeming to nod as if it isn't entirely in West Amwell.
It's West Amwell.
Okay. Well, solve that. Cindy knows everything.
Yeah, she does. Well, we'll double check just to make sure, but I think that's a question for our friends in West Amwell. Thank you.
All right. And then I'll allow you to continue with the Penny.
Yeah, just very briefly on Penny East. So, for years we have been meeting with we formed, I don't know how long ago this was, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the Penny East Pipeline Committee with representatives from the Environmental Commission and interested Lambervillians. We are probably in need of a refresh in terms of membership. So if the folks are listening and you're interested in joining, please email me at my council address or give me a call to refresh the enforcements here. We met and the sort of takeaway is that we really need to do an update. It's been a little bit dormant. The most sort of important thing that's happening right now is the Supreme Court's consideration of the Third Circuit decision. So the Third Circuit had a case with New Jersey, decided in favor of New Jersey. The issue was whether the National Gas Act delegates to FERC the authority to exercise eminent domain. There's about, I think, 35 to 40 properties in New Jersey that are either owned by the state or where the state has an interest. The Third Circuit's sided with New Jersey that said that they didn't have the power of eminent domain. That has been appealed by the consortium that is behind the Penny East pipeline. And so that we were hoping the Supreme Court would not take the case because it would be very difficult to proceed in New Jersey absent the ability to force eminent domain on the state. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court did take the case. It is not of right; it's a matter of discretion for the Supreme Court. They took the case, so they're somewhat interested. It's a pretty big nationally prominent case that's going to have implications beyond certainly New Jersey. So that's going to be briefed and argued. And I think it's in April that I think if I remember correctly, is going to be the hearing. We would expect a decision by late June. But anyway, we're going to try to update folks and put it on our website and send it out for what's happening in the Supreme Court, what's happening at FERC, what's happening at the other regulatory bodies that are looking at this.
And Councilman Sanders, I would like to mention here, we're gearing up right now for the next distribution of the the on paper Lambertville matters. And if you're looking for interested parties and to update the public, we'd be happy to give you 250 words to make that case.
Yep. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Council President Taylor.
Yeah, just briefly, I have recently started attending the Human Rights Council meetings, and they've actually been really lively and challenging and interesting, and also a little bit funny. We did have some unexpected visitors in one of our meetings, which has not happened to me in this whole year of Zoom. But all joking aside, the Human Rights Council is looking at how to move forward on the recommendations that were brought forward to council at our last meeting or the meeting before, recently brought forward to council. So if you are interested in helping the Human Rights Council think through how we work to make our city as equitable as possible and improve relationships across the board, please let me know. And I also just want to put a plug in for the Me and White Supremacy Reading Group that Human Rights Council has put together. The first meeting was last night. Is today the 18th? Yeah, I'm sorry, the days are running together. First meeting was last night. Really deep and challenging conversations among a handful, maybe 15 or so residents. So I encourage people who want to be part of these conversations, either formally or informally, please reach out to me or reach out to Ronnie Todd Marino, the chair of the Human Rights Council. And more will be coming soon about specific implementation steps for those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. And in that light, I want to also note we are in the process of working with a foundation that's part of Penn, the AMC, to do a series, a led sort of discussion. The format will be 4 experts in the field talking about white supremacy and politics, and how how those the history of those these types of arguments and how they are affecting both our long-term political trajectories as well as real policy. And they've agreed to do that actually in conjunction with the city of Lambertville. So I'll be working with the library and hopefully the Human Rights Commission to sponsor that event as a city of Lambertville and the University of Penn combined effort. So we'll have access to experts in their field, specifically around race, politics, and policy. And then the organizers of that event have agreed to do a Lambertville specific conversation with 2 of the experts. So we're driving towards some really interesting conversations here in town and using city resources to have those conversations. And I'm actually having a meeting about that with the library on Friday, tomorrow. So stay posted for the flyer on that. With that, I think those are all the updates from council. With that, let's open up for public comment.
Excuse me, Mayor. Before the public gets a chance, if I could just sneak in and say something to the public, I'd like that
Certainly.
opportunity. Yes, thank you. I just wanted to speak out to the public real quick. At the February 2nd meeting, we had a resolution come up for professional services, a contract for professional services for the Clausen property. And I missed the opportunity as a new council person. I want to try and have a practice of explaining why I vote a certain way for items such as this, and I missed that opportunity. So I just want to explain to the public that the reason I voted yes on that resolution was that it's important to have the cost estimates for possible use related to the Clausen site. And I was in favor of having that information available to us, to the public sooner rather than later. So that's all. That's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, as we discussed, for many months at this site, that we've all committed to getting as much information as possible before making a significant purchase of the Clausen property, multi-million-dollar purchase, which is why we're appointing all of those professionals to study that site. Okay, I believe we've got two hands. Tina, would you mind?
Paul, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Paul Stevens, 39 Corey. I'd just like to point out to everybody that the 21st is this Sunday and the CAT survey is up until then. And so I would like to encourage people to vote on or fill it out. And full disclosure, I haven't yet. And in this era of when every day is Blur's Day, I've actually put a reminder on my phone that actually this Sunday is the 21st and I've got to get it done by then. So anyway, just wanted to add that to the announcements.
Paul, I really appreciate that. I have seen some of the initial numbers from the survey. We've already had over 350 respondents, which is phenomenal for a public online survey. We're very happy with how hard the CAT has been working and how many residents we've been able to reach out to. We published that survey in both English and Spanish. We have paper and online copies. We've done, and I can't take any credit for this, community advisory team, and specifically their communications portion of the community advisory team has been really hoofing it to get response numbers like that. And I think we're going to have, it will be really edifying to us to have a good sense of where the community is. And the community advisory team will be presenting on our March 2nd meeting the findings of those surveys.
Yes, and I just wanted to remind people that actually this Sunday's the deadline. Days get lost. I know they do for me. So anyway, that was all. Thanks.
Thank you. And we'll make sure to send that one more time out in an email before then to remind folks as well. Tina, the next comment.
Matthew, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Good evening, Matt Hansen, 105 Douglas Street. I just wanted to say in this wintry weather that we've had, I just wanted to give a public shout out to the Department of Public Works. I know it's within their purview and job description to do all this, but I think they've really done a great job with this crazy weather we've had, and they were out all day today, really doing a great job with everything. So I just want to give a public shout out that, you know, although it may be their job technically, they've really done a great job this winter with everything. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I will just note again, you know, our Public Works Department worked particularly last week or 2 weeks ago, you know, on 12-hour shifts nonstop to address one of the largest snow events in a decade. And so we really appreciate that acknowledgement. This has been a very difficult time for the city, and obviously our staff really rose to the challenge.
Clinton resident, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Lily Chen, 17 Clinton Street. I guess I have a comment, or maybe it's a question. How come we didn't do the feasibility study on the Clausen Farm before signing the contract? Instead, we're signing the contract and now doing the feasibility study. It just seems odd to me to do it in this order. Was there a reason why this order was chosen?
Yes. So the intention was that the city wanted to gain exclusivity over the site to ensure that we had the ability to do this type of environmental and due diligence research, and also to ensure that other interested buyers did not come in under the city's timeline. Cities and governments work slowly. So we negotiated a 6-month due diligence period, which is longer than a commercial due diligence period, in order for us to be able to do this. And we structured our contract in a way that if we found issues on the site that made it infeasible for the city to purchase, that we would not move forward. You have to have a contract in place in order to be able to do this type of feasibility.
Okay, that I understand. So let's say 6 months from now, you discover through testing or the study that this purchase doesn't work for the city. Do we get our deposit back, or do we get a portion of the $75,000 back? How does that work?
So we are actually already 2 months through our due diligence period. The due diligence period closes on April 30th. The way that we structured our contract was that every 2 months, part of our down payment would harden, so that we had a little bit more skin in the game every 2 months. So if we decided today that we know that the Clausen purchase was no longer a suitable fit for the city, I believe $25,000 would be, we would lose $25,000. You'll have to, excuse me, I don't have the contract in front of me. 6 weeks from now, that becomes 50. Then 2 months after that becomes the full $75,000 is hardened and a loss. So I think we negotiated a reasonable contract that gave the city quite a bit of time to study this site to ensure that there was the right fit for the city, and also to garner information from the public, which is what the community advisory team is working to do, and also to provide some amount of assurance to the Clausens that we were not going to let them just hang on the line for 6 months without any skin in the game.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands raised. So with that Can I get a motion to close? Public hearing?
So moved.
Councilwoman Taylor for the first,
Second.
Councilwoman Sanders for the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Sanders for the first, Councilman Stegman for the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us.